Welcome to the Vault Excel. Happy Memorial Day to the viewing audience and the chats. Prayers to the families of the fallen, United States military, and those who are venturing into the military. Prayers for their journey as well. Thank you all so much for joining me. Hope you all have a wonderful week. I will be posting a movie of the week to the community board. Please check that community board under the Vault Excel for breaking news, subject matters that I may not discuss on the channel, but just to let you know what's going on in America and abroad. Thank you all so much. Many of you who follow my content know that I like true crime, I like mysteries, I like horror movies, scary movies, however you like to describe them. I grew up on them as a small girl growing up in Chicago, and I'm still a fan. One of those movies that I watched many years ago was called Orphan. Little did I know that Orphan was just an adaptation loosely based on a true story of a family that adopted a child they thought was a child, but was actually deemed an adult. To date, there are no records of this young lady's birthright in the world, which I find very, very strange. I want you to look at this picture and tell me, what do you see? Hello, Sammy P. Thank you for joining me. I've got 7 viewing, 1 thumbs up. Come on, you guys, hit the thumbs up. What do you see when you look at this photograph of this young lady here? I'll wait. That a child to you? Is that a child staring back through the photograph? Or was that a full adult labeled as a child either by herself or an agency who placed her with an American family? Did the agency have knowledge that she was not a child but a dwarf, small person, and forged documents as to put her with a family? But why would you do that if you knew she was an adult, when you could just help her navigate through life if indeed she had any type of developmental issues such as mental issues? Many people are developmentally ill, disabled, some form of fashion, or mentally disabled. Not a child. You don't see a child in that photograph. You see an adult. If I was to pass this picture to you without me saying what I said before, you possibly would have thought that was a child. And I meant to put a title with this going live, but I'll do that afterwards. What do you see in this photograph? That's not a 6-year-old child. Let's get on with the commentary. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big Angie 129, Cash App, Strippers and Chats, and welcome to the live stream. Insider is the source. A family thought they were adopting a 6-year-old girl. Now they claim she's an adult. Honest. The strange case of Natalia Grace Barnett, a Ukrainian orphan, captured headlines worldwide. Her adopted parents claimed the girl, a little person, was an adult masquerading as a child. A new docuseries has investigated the bizarre claims and counterclaims of the people involved. It was perhaps one of the strangest stories ever in the headlines. Natalia Grace Barnett, a little person with a rare bone growth disorder, was adopted from Ukraine by a family who thought she was 6 years old. Her adopted parents later claimed she was associated to be a child. Michael and Christine Barnett of Indianapolis said Natalia wanted to harm them and their biological children. Meanwhile, authorities charged the parents with neglecting their disabled daughter. The convoluted tale is chronicled in the new docuseries, The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, on Investigation Discovery. The filmmakers tried to find out the truth behind the affair. Michael Barnett defended himself during extended interviews. Christine Barnett and Natalia chose not to give their sides of the story. Why is that? We will see. Michael Barnett said the family had no reason to suspect that Natalia was an adult. Speaking in the series, Michael Barnett, who is now divorced from Christine, said the family was living with a con artist and a psychopath. The Barnetts adopted Natalia in 2010 from an adoption agency in Florida. Barnett said in the film that they were given a day to decide whether to do so. Very interesting. She was adopted in 2010 from an agency now. And they said in the film that they were given a day to decide. I wonder why a day. That would be strange as well. They said she was dwarfism. You have 24 hours to sign. Otherwise, she's going straight to foster, he said. Is this a case of nefarious dealings from the agency or they had a lot of children to try to get to adoption and into a home? What was the deal with the agency? And will someone speak on behalf of the agency, which we know all information is private, from DHS to adoption agencies, but will somebody decide to tell the truth that they illegally did something wrong in birthright papers pertaining to Miss Grace? Who's going to tell the truth? We adopted Natalia because we wanted to help somebody who was in danger of never being loved, Barnett said, adding that her Ukrainian birth certificate said she was born September 4th, 2003. He said that they had no reason to believe she wasn't a 6-year-old orphan. She had a spondylio, I can pronounce this, epiphyseal dysplasia, the rare kind of dwarfism that can cause skeletal abnormalities and issues with vision and hearing. Natalia was barely 3 feet tall. Here is a picture of the family with their little bitty, what was then considered a girl child. Very interesting. In the film, Barnett said that Christine gave Natalia a bath a day after the adoption. He said that his ex-wife was shocked to discover that their brand new little girl had pubic hair. Soon afterward, he said, Christine confronted Natalia because she found some blood-stained underwear in her bedroom. Speaking in a home video shown in the series, Natalia replied, I have a period and I've been hiding it. This is strange to me. It says, speaking in a home video shown in the series, I have a period. Why would you be filming that? Everybody stay woke now. Are you filming it for documentation to use against the agency down the road that they deceived you? I'm curious. A lot of information to dissect here. Barnett said Natalia displayed disturbing behaviors, such as urinating and defecating in the car and smearing the windows with feces. In public, he said she'd throw herself out of the passenger door for attention. The idea was to look like a poor, helpless little girl, he said. He said in the documentary that she started hoarding knives and once told him, I'm going to kill you in your sleep. Another time, the father said she appeared at the foot of their bed with a knife in her hand. The Barnetts became convinced that Natalia's Ukrainian birth certificate had been forged. Excuse me. So sorry. Excuse my manners. Barnett also accused Natalia of trying to poison Christine by pouring cleaning supplies into her coffee, shoving her against an electric fence, and threatening to stab her older brothers. Please explain to me how a 3-foot person can push an adult woman into a fence, unless the mother is only a few feet or inches taller than the child. I'm confused. Stay woke now. And we'll go back up to that picture and you can ask yourself, who pushed whom and what is the truth of the allegations? She was doing everything possible to cause hurt, harm, or mental distress to the family, Barnett said. Interviewed in the series, Natalia's eldest brother, Jacob Barnett, said he didn't feel safe around Natalia. He added, I was just scared. But if you remember in the movie, which that's just fiction, this boy, Jacob, the brother, fictionalized, of course, didn't seem to like the little girl when she first got there. And I believe because of the plot that they were laying out, he was jealous that the family went and got a girl child. So could it be in this case, this boy child in real life was jealous of another child entering the family dynamic? Okay. Once again, the boy child brother said he felt scared. Natalia spent time in the state mental hospital where Michael Barnett said a therapist diagnosed her as a sociopath. A number of hospital staffers who spoke in the docuseries on condition of anonymity said she was released after making inappropriate sexual remarks to male patients. By then, the Barnetts were convinced that their daughter was an adult. They said her Ukrainian birth certificate had been forged. Please look at the photograph. 3 feet tall. That is an adult at that time. Is she an adult? Was she an adult at that time when they adopted her? Did the agency forge documents on this small person? Is the family making these things up about the young girl? What is the truth to this information? The same year, the parents successfully petitioned the court to change Natalia's birth records, citing that she hadn't grown in their care. It determined that she was born on September 4th, 1989, some 14 years earlier, the court decided she was a 23-year-old adult. The Barnetts found an apartment for Natalia and paid the rent. Neighbors who lived in the housing complex told the filmmakers that Natalia would introduce herself as little person in her early 20s. They befriended her, they said, but they added they lost trust. Natalia's closest neighbors, Sue McCallum and Toby and Melanie Miles, said she appeared unannounced in their homes. They said they were also unnerved by how she seemed to have to behave sexually around people, including kids. Toby Miles said that he became increasingly frightened of Natalia because she told him that she had tried to kill her mom. A recording of a 911 call that she made at the time was played in the documentary. "I'm stalking one of my neighbors," Natalia told the operator, adding, "I don't want to harm them." The Barnetts, who were soon to engage in a bitter divorce, moved to Canada when Natalia's lease was up. Very interesting. Police accused the Barnetts of abandoning their dependent Natalia and forcing her to fend for herself. They moved her into an apartment in a rundown part of Lafayette, Indiana. Speaking in the documentary, Natalia's neighbor, Kyra Weaver, said Natalia struggled to climb the steps to her apartment and couldn't reach the kitchen counter or a washing machine. "I felt like she had been thrown to the wolves," Weaver said. Other neighbors said Natalia could barely cook for herself and had a limited diet of takeout pizza and instant noodles. She relied on food stamps, according to a neighbor. Authorities became involved once Natalia's electricity and phone line were cut off after her bills weren't paid. She moved in with the family of a neighbor, Cynthia Mans, and was helped by a social worker who liaised with the police. Detectives questioned the Barnetts, accusing them of leaving Natalia to fend for herself for more than 3 years. Here is the picture of the Barnetts during what could be seen as happier times of abandoning a dependent person, if indeed she is an adult or was an adult at the time of her adoption. You're entitled to your opinion. In 2019, the Barnetts, who gave opposing accounts of what happened, faced a string of charges related to neglect. Prosecutors dropped the original charges of neglect of a child because the court ordered change to Natalia's age in 2012 and the statute of limitations. Instead, Michael Barnett was tried for neglect of a dependent. The authority said that even if Natalia had been an adult at the time she was abandoned, she was dependent on her parents because of her dwarfism. Natalia appeared on Dr. Phil and maintained that she was 6 when she was adopted. A judge did not allow the issue of Natalia's age to be raised in front of the jury. Michael Barnett was found not guilty of all charges in Fall 22. Let me throw in this, because I found this interesting when I read this before going live. I found it interesting here that the judge would not allow her age to be introduced. Why not? If legally the parents went before a court and got documents to state that she was older than she was at the time of adoption and that there was nefarious dealings in her birth certificate, that information should be used in the court because that is what they're being charged with as well. They're being charged with abandoning a person, whether it be a child or a dependent. That was the whole purpose of going to court, because initially they thought what was supposed to be a child was an adult. So why not mention it? I mention this because of Lori Vallow's situation and this 8th juror coming forward to give testimony of evidentiary material pertaining to Charles, and the Arizona police should have been further spoke of in the court. But as you see, they mentioned a bit of that information pertaining to Charles and his dealings with Lori before death, but it's not brought in basically as evidence to show a demonstrative pattern. See, this makes no sense to me, because this is why a lot of people get off on certain charges, is because they don't allow certain things about their past to be brought into the trial, the charge that they are being charged with. But you don't know that they did something over here and over there, which could lead you to say, oh, he has a pattern of, let's say, assaulting, physical or whatever it is. So certain things should be brought into evidence. And I do believe it was a mistake not to mention the real reason why they landed in court in the first place pertaining to NATALIA is because they thought they were misled by the agency and the child. I will resume this information. Once again, the judge did not allow the issue of NATALIA's age to be raised in front of the jury. Michael Barnett was found not guilty, Fall 22. Christine Barnett's trial was scheduled for February this year, but the case was dismissed. Still, Michael Barnett excoriated his ex-wife in the documentary, saying Christine is a walking epitome of evil. Well now, which one is really evil? The baby dwarf or the adoptive mother, or both? Stay woke, everybody. As for NATALIA, she maintained that she was 6 when she was adopted. She appeared on the Dr. Phil show in November of 2019. They say that you scammed them, that you lied about your age and came over here and terrorized them. The host, Phil McGraw, said told NATALIA about the Barnett. She insisted that she was born in 2003, not 1989. You say you are 16, McGraw said during the interview. He then asked, are you 33? Are you a 33-year-old scam artist? No, NATALIA replied. NATALIA's claims have never been proved. Now, this is baffling to the Queen. Why not? Because, as we know, that all adoption records are sealed unless somebody decides to squeal and give the tea. Now, at least in the eyes of the law, she's a 36-year-old woman. Whatever the case, speaking in the documentary, Michael Barnett said he had compassion for NATALIA, even though she testified against him in court. He said that they exchanged a discreet wave after the jury gave its verdict. I looked her directly in the eyes, Barnett said in the series, adding, I mouthed to her, this is hard, I'm sorry. The Curious Case of NATALIA Grace will premiere across 3 consecutive nights on the ID beginning Monday, airing nightly at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have a powerful story to share with the Insider, please send it to jridley@insider.com. Insider is the source of this information. Thank you for joining me, everybody, in the chat. Happy Memorial Day to the viewing audience. Let's go back up and get to the gist of this mystery. Number 1, the family who are no longer together. What's the stress of raising this child and the deceit from this child, and the agency allegedly drove a wedge between these two? We have testimony that she's evil, Christine. Words from the husband. What happened in this marriage? Was NATALIA the cause of these two, of their union? Is NATALIA a grown woman? Was she older than 6 at the time of adoption? Please look carefully at this photograph. Courtesy of Investigation Discovery. Who are we looking at in this photograph? Hello, everybody in the chat. Imagine this 3-foot person defecating in a car, urinating in a car, smearing boo-boo on a window. I wouldn't expect a 6-year-old to behave this way. So what I'm trying to understand is, why would they say, one, she did this, and that she behaved this way for attention, throwing herself out of a car door while the car was in motion? Are these allegations true of this young person who is now deemed an adult? Did she do these things on purpose, or she was mentally disturbed? Mentally disturbed. What is the truth? Allegations of her pushing the mother into a fence. Once again, 3 feet tall. How is that possible? Let's zoom in on this picture. Look at the size of NATALIA versus the 2 parents. I'll wait. Ask yourself, was this little person strong enough to give this woman a jolt? Because she doesn't look very thin in this picture, and she doesn't look very heavy either. So she's probably at least 150 pounds, at least in this photograph, or more. 3 feet versus 150 plus pound woman. Let's do the math. Next photograph. The face of a small girl child. That now the court says was not 6 years old at the time of adoption. You have to remember something about accusations, conspiracy. And you heard this in the trial pertaining to Lori Vallow and her cohorts. A conspiracy has to be an agreement between 2 or more. Stay woke now. So what are we to believe pertaining to NATALIA? That she met someone from an adoption agency and told them that she's what? Destitute, lonely, in need of help, needs a family, can't make it on her own as an adult. So someone said, okay, NATALIA, we'll pass you off as a child and find you a family. What is the truth? Once again, conspiracy is an agreement between 2 or more parties. It's just a conspiracy of an agency and an adult wanting and needing a family, can't make it on her own because of her size, not knowledgeable of the world, and someone aided her to get adopted under nefarious information. Because in the end, NATALIA was born to somebody, number one. And she got to this agency, and I guess it was Florida, by what means? Who had NATALIA first? Because she had to come out of a woman's belly. Stay woke now. How did she get from the womb to the agency? Because allegedly she was perceived as a 6-year-old, but was not. A 14-year difference, which would have put her at 20. So they took in a 20-year-old or so. And if there's a discrepancy in the age, I'll correct it. Nonetheless, they're claiming she was an adult when this family took her in. But strange things started to occur as far as her having a period, pubic hair, odd behavior, sexually around children, which is even more disturbing And I'm going to say what I always say about things that go bump in the night. Most behavior is derived from childhood. So if she was acting sexually around a child and or an adult, it's because 9 times out of 10, something was done sexually to her. Does not mean her behavior is proper and correct, but people mimic what has been done to them. This is why we have child predators, sadists, and rapists, and so on and so forth. It's because most of those people were abused as children, and they continue to mimic the behavior, and then they have gotten accustomed to the behavior, and now they are adults and cannot stop. I do believe that is what has happened to NATALIA Grace. Where is she now? Is she still in the state of Indiana? Is she on her own? Is she dating, married? Has she had children? Where is Miss Grace? If anyone has any information pertaining to the whereabouts of NATALIA Grace, please come to my network and put down the appropriate information, and we can decipher it together to get to the truth. I will go look for the Dr. Phil segment with NATALIA on it, and perhaps due to copyright claims, I have to be careful if I decide to air it and then we all discuss it the way I'm doing it now, because it makes it easier to show you the content so people can see what she looks like. But this is baffling, this information here. Because when I watched the movie Orphan, naturally, I'm assuming it's fiction, which I'm sure, most of that was fiction, but it's loosely based from this tale that actually happened of a family adopting a foreign baby who was not the age that was claimed to be through documents. So we have to ask ourselves about the agency, because they're the ones who took her in, and that means they got her from somewhere. So did they get her from the mother or parent directly, or where? Because usually adoption agencies work directly with the person who has the child, number one. Foster care adoptions are children who are already in the state's care. We do not hear that this child was in state's care, which I believe would be separate. It'd be a separate entity. So we're talking about an adoption agency solely. What is the truth? This is a riveting story, and one I will bring a follow-up to, because I will look for the episode and try to play that content. Because I think we need to take a good look at this content to see what she looks like, her demeanor while talking to Dr. Phil, and if she is believable that she indeed thought she was a child. And could it be, because we don't know all the details, could it be that NATALIA was deceived as a small person, believing she was a child by her mother or whoever raised her, and then she was placed with this agency? You got information that she threatened her mother. So which mother, Queen stays woke now, which mother was NATALIA speaking of when she told this neighbor this while out living on her own? The mother that gave her up, these people here who adopted her, or her actual biological mother? Who are we speaking of? Because this is very interesting information here. Who was NATALIA speaking of when she told the neighbor, I tried to kill my mom? Miss Christine or another woman? Number two, she called the police telling them she was going to harm her neighbors. Not good. 911 call. What was going on there? Neighbors started to distrust her because she was showing up unannounced to their homes. So when you mean unannounced, do you mean she would just come knock on the door without calling first, or walked into your domain? Did she make any sexual advances to these neighbors and or their children? Has she been accused of child molestation, since the accusation is on the table, and what actually happened with Christine. Because you hear in this documentary, Christine, the mother, and this young person here, Natalia, did not do the interview with Investigation Discovery, only the father. And she, this little person here, Natalia, testified against Mr. Barnett. But he still spoke to her anyway because he felt sorry for her. And he was not found guilty of neglect charges of a dependent. And also a charge was dismissed against Christine. How do you all feel about them taking her to the rough parts of Indianapolis and throwing her out, getting her an apartment, and then leaving her to fend for herself? The neighbors testified she could not cook for herself, reach the cabinets, countertops, washing machine, so on and so forth. Were these people liable for her care? Should they have reached out to Adult Protective Services with the information that they were deceived, that the court rendered her an adult, and they needed them to step in and take possession of her? That would have been the right thing to do. Putting her in an apartment and then not visiting, no longer paying for bills, was the wrong thing to do, in my opinion. And I understand some people will say, well, she was an adult. But the thing is, you've got to prove that Natalia made her way to an agency, which you know that doesn't even sound right. How is she going to walk up to an agency saying, hey, I'm a kid, I'm abandoned, I need to be adopted? No, somebody was working with her. Somebody was working with Natalia as an adult to get her adopted. So therefore, you've got to prove that the agency had knowledge that she was a child, and or you have to prove Natalia knew she was not a child and went along with whomever to get her to the agency. See, there's too many entities involved and you don't know how it all played out. Yeah, she had no life skills. So whether she was violent or not, you still should call Adult Protective Services, since she's deemed an adult by the court and they changed the records of her birth to be that of 1989. The right thing to do was to call Adult Protective Services. And so you don't be deemed abandoning an adult. And I still believe it should have been mentioned in court that we are in this court because we originally thought she was a child and she was not. She had characteristics of an adult, behavior of an adult. But see, what I don't understand is how could the courts prove she was an adult without verification? Because all you got to go on is pubic hair and a period. Now, a defense attorney would love this case and say, oh, that's circumstantial. She's a dwarf. They have different characteristics and hormones. Who's to say? You be the judge. This is a very interesting story, and I will follow up with any details, but let us all check out the documentary on the ID network, and we all meet back up here on the Vault Excel to discuss the documentary. So let's all try to watch it. Some of us may not have ID. Let's try to find a way, if you can, to log on to the ID network to watch this documentary. Decide who in the documentary is telling the truth and who is going to be the one to finally come forward with the truth of Natalia's origins. That is how you would get to the gist of how she got to, one, the agency, who they dealt with in the agency, what they said to the people in the agency, if the agency is liable for lying to this family, causing a rift in their family, and where she is today. This is a very baffling story. And if you do not like scary movies, that is fine. The movie pertaining to Orphan, it's not a very scary movie. It's just a little slight horror film. I recommend you watch it. It's not to say that anything done in that movie was done by this real life person, Natalia Grace, but it's just a recommendation of why I guess someone decided to take the movie and put this idea to print. But once again, it's just a loosely based horror movie on this actual person you are now looking at on this screen. Natalia Grace, adopted at allegedly 6 years of age and deemed a child from an adoption agency to the Barnett family. Things started to go awry in the family. The brother feared her. I do not know the dynamics between Christine and her, but I do believe it says in this article that she filmed her saying that she didn't have a period or whatever. You have to go back and recap this article from the beginning when I bring you the information, but it was filmed because it says that the video was shown in the documentary, and you have to ask yourself, why would the mother be filming her asking a child about a period? The only reason I could think she did that is to have verification to the agency and anyone after if she wanted to file charges against the agency for falsifying documents and, a crime. Because it is a crime if you knew that she was not a child and they paid. Because naturally in the agency, you pay a fee for adopting a child. So let's ask that question. See, there's so many things you can spin from this story. What was the amount they paid for Natalia? Assisted living, sweetheart, is for elderly. She's not elderly. You've got to deem a person a certain capacity before placing them in any type of facility for the mentally disabled. So she has to be assessed that she's mentally disabled, one, to go in a group home. If she can use the bathroom, bathe herself, conduct herself, cook, catch a bus, read, write, she could live on her own. She'd just be a very small person living on her own, number one. And as I said, did she cause the breakup between the Barnetts? He speaks ill of her in the documentary, I do believe, Mr. Barnett, of his wife, Christine. He says she's the epitome of evil. What did he mean by that? Because I'm trying to figure out, did she somehow feel bad for the little girl, sided with the girl / woman? What happened? Because you don't get much information in this article of what happened in the marriage. What did he mean that the wife is the epitome of evil? Was he siding with the little girl? She's siding. In this article, it says the two gave conflicting information about what actually happened with Natalia. Let me go back up to show you that information, and then I will end this live stream. Thank you for joining me. Let's go back up. Sorry, we'll go back down rather. That's the first photograph. See, the last part of this says, a new docuseries has investigated the bizarre claims and counter claims of the people involved. So that means one is saying something different than the other person. She was deemed a sociopath by the adoptive parents. Came from the Ukraine, allegedly. She wanted to harm them and their biological children. So how many children did they have total living in the house at the time of adoption? And naturally, they were accused of neglecting their disabled daughter. There is a documentation of this story, Natalia Grace on Investigation Discovery. Okay. Natalia and Christine have decided to not give their side of the story. Why not? You want the truth out. You don't want people saying bad things about you. You don't want to be judged, deemed a liar. The husband and wife don't get along, so why not tell your side? Because this is what I always tell you about true crime. Everything is a version. Everything is about perception, such as 2, 3 children could be raised in a household by the same mother, father, whomever, but each child may have a different version of how he or she was treated. Stay woke now. I had a great life. My parents were great to me. Another child could say they were not nice to me, or my mom was not nice to me, but another child will say, I didn't have any problems with my mother mistreating me, because maybe there's some truth to what both have said. One was treated great and the other one was not. Maybe one child was a troubled child and refused to own that they caused trouble and mischief in the house. So their perception is that they were mistreated. Stay woke now. See, everything is about perception when it comes to what is truth and what is not. And then there's also evidence, proof that someone was mistreated. And that's where the court of law comes in. Show us the proof he or she did or said that. Okay. The fact they had 24 hours to sign, this is right here. You have 24 hours to sign, otherwise she's going straight to foster. So that goes to show you there. Adoption agencies are separate than Department of Human Services. So how did the child get to this agency? By whom? Who was the person that took care of her and tried to place her up for adoption? They placed her up for adoption. Her biological mother, people who were taking care of her, were tired of taking care of her. They didn't do a good job taking care of her, or she was wayward or became wayward, and then they said, I know how to get out of taking care of her as an adult. We'll lie and say she's 6 years old. But then you still have to have documentation of a birth certificate to give to the agency to show Natalia was 6 and not 20. Very interesting. Okay. Vision problems with this type of dwarfism and abnormalities, vision and hearing issues. So did she have a vision problem? Did she have a hearing problem? I'm trying to find something in here, because right here it shows about her having the period. It says, in the film, Christine gave her a bath the day after adoption. He said that his ex-wife was shocked to discover that their brand new little girl had pubic hair. Soon afterward, he said Christine confronted Natalia because she found some blood-stained underwear in her bedroom. How soon was it that the girl had bloody underwear? Week 1, month, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, a year in? What are we saying here? Speaking in a home video, repeat, speaking in a home video shown in the series, Natalia replied, I have a period and I've been hiding it. Excuse me, I think I said earlier she didn't say she had a period. So here, the mother has a home video asking her about her girly issues, and allegedly on the video, Natalia replies, I have a period and I've been hiding it, quote unquote. Disturbing behaviors of urinating, defecating in the car, and smearing the windows with feces in public, he said. She'd throw herself out of the passenger door for attention. The idea was to look like a poor, helpless little girl. Hoarding knives, allegedly saying she would kill him in his sleep. And then one night at the foot of their bed with a knife in her hand. Are these allegations true about Natalia Grace? Shoving the mother into a fence, allegedly, I believe there's more accusations. I'll make sure I tell it all here. The insider is the source. Cleaning supplies in the mother's coffee, shoving her against an electric fence and threatening to stab her older brothers. These are the allegations from the Barnetts, but yet they say they have conflicting stories. So who's saying what exactly? Because now I'm confused. All these allegations of knife hoarding, standing in front of the bed with a knife, pushing the wife into a fence, allegedly trying to poison the mother with cleaning supplies. This is the same person who can't even reach over the counter. So that means naturally you put cleaning supplies at the bottom of a kitchen cabinet or bathroom cabinet so she can reach that. So did you all catch her with the cleaning supplies, using them? You caught her putting them in a coffee cup, soda pop, can, what? Did you ever call the agency to say you saw these disturbing behaviors, you witnessed these behaviors, you had proof of these behaviors? Did you take that video to the agency to show she was an adult having a cycle and that she admitted it? Was that information also introduced into court so the court could deem her an adult when they changed the records that she was an adult instead of a child? Because in the end, that's all the court would have to go on, that she was an adult, was the fact she had pubic hair and her admitting she has a period. A lot of information to dissect, but the part that is baffling of the story is the obvious. Where did she come from? Was she born in the Ukraine? Who gave birth to her? How did she get to America? Who raised her in America? And who took her to that damn agency? And did the agency forge documents and made up documents that she was a child? What is the truth? And why are there conflicting stories between Mr. and Mrs. Barnett, who are now no longer American citizens, Canadian residents, allegedly, and divorced? And where is Natalia Grace today? Mother, loner, living on her own, facility? Does she drive a car, ride the bus, Uber, what? And did she go along with the plot to pretend to be a child to get adopted? Or someone took her, told her, this is the best I can offer you. I can't take care of you. Because it sounds like whoever had custody of her knew that she was an adult and did not want to raise her any further or take care of her, let's say, because perhaps she was too difficult. She had mental disabilities. She was doing all type of weird, wacky things, defamatory things. And so they took her to this agency, and possibly they took fake documents to the agency, and maybe the agency had no idea they were dealing with a fully grown person. But the gist of the story would be Natalia had to then go along with it. Because if she was raised with some other people as a child and then became an adult, these people took her to this agency. Natalia had to have gone along with the plan. And that's the scary part of the story. Because you have to remember, Natalia went to this agency by another human being. She didn't go on her own. So somebody lied to the agency and Natalia went along with it, unless when she was raised by her family, whomever they are, they lied to her about being an adult and they placated her as a child, even when they knew she was an adult. And when they tired of her, they forged documents, took them to an agency, and the child was passed along and given up. But the strange part of that, if you believe that version, why was there a rush by the agency to get rid of her within 24 hours, or they would turn her over to the state? Now I want you to picture this. Imagine Natalia in the State Department's custody. You definitely talking about a Lifetime movie / Netflix / ID channel / Oxygen / Dateline. You see where I'm going. Imagine her in foster care, doing these types of things allegedly, and then going from home to home as an adult. Natalia Grace, Ukrainian born allegedly. Sorry about that, you guys. Little mishap. Once again, now deemed a 36-year-old woman, deemed an adult by the courts. Does she have contact with her biological family? Any type of family, friends, support? Has anyone that raised her tried to reach out to her? The Barnetts, have they tried to reach out to her? Have they rendered an apology for abandoning her to her? Each were found, husband found not guilty in a court of law, and charges were dismissed against Miss Christine. And also there is conflicting information pertaining to the events that took place in the lives of all involved. Who is telling the truth about what happened during the adoption and care of Natalia Grace? And why didn't Natalia and Christine speak to Investigation Discovery for the documentary? Why just Mr. Barnett? Look at this photograph and ask yourself, is this a child who was lied to and thought she was actually a child and possibly placed from place to place here and there? Maybe she was adopted at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. How did she get to America? Who had her? Who gave birth to her? And who was the person that placed her with this adoption agency? Is the adoption agency liable for lying, had knowledge she was actually thought this was a 6-year-old little girl? Was this 6-year-old little girl, who was actually a woman, went along with being placed up for adoption because she could not take care of herself, and she went along with the scheme from whoever placed her? What is the truth pertaining to Natalia Grace? Please check out the said documentary on the ID Network. I want to thank you for your time. Like, share, subscribe. Please drop your comments below on this video and on the community page. I will also put up a poll pertaining to Natalia Grace's story. We will watch this documentary and meet back up here on the Vault XL to discuss the findings and commentary in that said information, and know that the couple are no longer together. They are now divorced. Did this girl, child / adult cause the dissipation of the marriage? If you'd like to donate to this great network, the Vault XL, $DeGanji, 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Thank a veteran today. Prayers to the fallen, their families. Prayers for our veterans. Prayers for those currently serving in the military and those who are venturing into the military. Thank you for your service. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Please check my community board for polls, breaking news, updated stories, the latest elements to breaking stories, and also any suggestions for movies of the week. And possibly this will be my suggestion for documentary of the week on the ID Network. Thank you for those who tuned into this live stream below in the chat. God bless all of you. You have been listening to The Vault XL.